Alright, hello, I'm Casey, and today we're going to go over Adobe Premiere Pro CC Section 2.2, how to navigate, organize, and customize the application workspace. When you first open up the Adobe Premiere software, you're going to see this screen. This is your welcome screen that has recent projects that you were working on, or you can open a new project, open a project, a new team project, or open a team project if you're working in conjunction with other people. So for this one, we're just going to open a new project, and so here's your settings. So right here is where you name your project and where you're going to save it. That's pretty straightforward. These are different settings you can have. You can choose on here the video displays, display format, audio samples, capture format. We're not going to be capturing anything because we're working with digital media off of a flash drive. I'm just going to call this test project. And then right away, you're going to see your workspace. Now the workspace by default usually comes in as either editing or assembly, or sometimes it comes in as the last workspace that you were working with. So this is the first thing up here. So there's different tabs that lay things out for you. There's a learning tab, which if you're brand new to Premiere, I recommend using it. There's understanding the Premiere Pro interface, which kind of doing right now, importing media, preparing your clips for editing, editing your clips, exporting your project content. So it's a good learning workspace. Now assembly, this is where you can just start putting things together. It brings your most of your windows right up here. It puts them all together. You can switch between the tabs at the top. It's a pretty basic workspace. It only has 5 windows if you count the audio and the tools in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows. Then you can switch between your effects, your library, audio clip, markers, media browser, and the like. Editing obviously is more geared towards editing, where it puts your project folders in your media browser, and your effects kind of throws them down off to the side because they're not as important for this one as is your effect controls, your audio clip, and your source. And then it puts your preview window here, and then your timeline down there. Color. This one's great for if you're doing color grading, and it'll put all of your Lumetri presets and all of your editing stuff over here on this side. And the same thing with graphics does that. Puts all of your graphic stuff over here on the side. Libraries window lets you organize things, and audio if you're concentrating on audio format. So I generally stay in the editing workspace. It has the most variety for me. So first thing that we're going to do is go into our project. To do that, you can cycle through these little windows down there. If you can't find the window that you want, you can click this little arrow, and it'll pop up all of the available windows right there. And if you need to, you can always go up here to Window and look for whatever window you want here. If it's open, it has a check mark by it. Like let's say I was looking for my project window and I didn't see it because it was off to the side down there. I could always either click this little arrow, find project, or I could go up to Window and find my projects right in there. Okay, so that's one way to find windows if you can't find them. Same thing goes if you accidentally close a window, like project, closed panel. It happens a lot with my students. They'll close a panel and they don't know where it goes. Well, easy to find. Go up to Window, and you could find it here, Projects, Test. It'll pop back up, or you can always go Window, Workspaces, and select from there, or you can reset your workspace to a saved layout, and then that'll reset it back to what it was. So let's say you accidentally closed your project panel, close the panel, you accidentally closed your source panel. Well, you got more windows to open. Instead of having to go through and figure out what's missing, just go Windows, Window, Workspaces, Reset to Saved Layout, and everything comes back. So that's very handy. You can adjust these too. So let's say you don't like exactly how it looks, or you're used to a different layout, or you have 2 monitors, or you have an extended monitor. Well, you can grab the window, click on this, undock the panel, and then that'll bring this panel out and it'll float. You could have it floating and put it off to the side on another screen somewhere else that you want to put it, or you could redock it by grabbing this little window here. Let's do that again. And whoops, see, there we go. I accidentally closed it. Window, Workspace, Reset to Saved Layout. There it is again. Undock the panel. You can grab the words right here. This is where the top of the tab is, and where you drop it, the window will highlight. So if you put it here, it'll drop it in this window. If you put it at the top, it'll put it above that window. If you drop it into this line, it'll put it in the same window there. Okay, so just depending, and if you dropped it here, it would put it in between this window and this window. If you dropped it here, it would put it in between this window and this window. So you can kind of mess with things and see how you like it. If you don't like it, you can always change it. So it's highly customizable, which is one of the really great things about this type of workspace, saying if you completely mess it up and you don't know what's happening, Window, Workspace, Reset to Saved Layout, and it's back. So when you're importing media, you can drag and drop if you want to. You can just take your file, drag it, drop it right into the project. And if you have multiple types of media, I would recommend importing them first. But if you want to, you can just drag it directly into the timeline, and that will create a sequence based on the footage. Now, it might take a second because that was 4K footage. So that created my sequence. Now if I go in here to my sequence settings, it'll tell you what that sequence or what the settings on that video were because it created. If you don't want to do that, there's another way. You can right click on the clip and go new sequence from clip, and it will create a new sequence. So if you want to rename your sequence, pretty easy to rename. Go down here, click on your sequence on the name, delete it and call it test 1, whatever you want to call it, and then it'll update it over here on the sequence name. Let's get rid of that one. So another way you can create a sequence, go File, New Sequence, and then depending on the type of footage or media you're using, you can choose out of that. You generally want to stick with the type of media you ingested, but if you have multiple forms of media, you want to choose something that's close to the output you're going for. So this is going to be your preview monitor over here. Again, you can always undock these by clicking on that, undock your panel, then you can put it wherever you want. Like at home, I work with 2 monitors, so I'll slide my preview all the way across to my second monitor. So that's really handy. And if you want to put it back, grab the little tab program, put it where you want it to go, and it'll dock there. So some of these different tabs up here will change. Like if you want to work on color, if you're doing color presets or you're working with Lumetri, click on your clip over there and then it'll activate all of these over here. You can change your exposure, you can change your temperature settings, you can change your input LUT if you're working with log footage. There's choices for that. You can always go down to your effect controls, which are down here, your effects, and choose your Lumetri presets down there if you wanted to. Change it from full to legal range if you're working in 10, 12, or 8-bit. You can work there. So that's basically how to navigate and where different things are. Okay, so configuring your preferences, you can go up to Edit, Preferences. And in this window, you just click on one and it should pop up the whole preference window. So in general, there's different things you can have. You can double click to open new tabs. Just go through them all and they pretty much explain what it is. Brightness of your workspace, your highlight color, your interactive controls, focus indicators, audio. A lot of things in here. I'm not going to go through all of them because just depending on your computer system, your operating system, what type of hardware you have, this stuff will change depending on that. But this is how you get into your preferences, your capture, collaboration, team projects. There's so much stuff in here that you can customize. Graphics, labels, media cache. This is one I go to a lot because if your computer starts slowing down, you can change your cache settings, and then it'll automatically delete it. Where it saves your cache, this is a very important one. If you have separate drives like I do in my computer, it'll fill up one drive more than the other, so you probably want to go interchange that. Your memory, how much memory is allocated for it. So that's how you get into that. And then also in your project settings down here, this is where you can go in and alter your project settings. So like your scratch disks, your ingest settings when you're ingesting stuff. Another thing you can customize, go down here to keyboard shortcuts, and that'll pop up all of the keyboard shortcuts, which are very handy when you're editing a lot of clips or a lot of stuff. If you're using the keyboard, it makes it go much faster if you memorize some of these. Just a couple of them. You don't have to memorize all of them. Like there's a few, like the ones that I use all the time are the C and V, Razor Tool, Selection Tool, Ripple Edit Tool, Rolling Edit Tool. These 4 down here, your add markers. They're very handy when you're trying to edit really fast. You don't have to go back and forth and keep selecting your tools. So memorize a few of them. If nothing else, C, V, and the space bar are the 3 I use most often. So in this one we went over navigating, organizing, and customizing the application workspace, such as identifying and manipulating elements of the Premiere Pro interface, organizing and customizing the workspace, and configuring application preferences.